David sat in his car outside the hospital staring at his phone. His hands were shaking. He'd just left his mother's room after hearing news that changed everything. The doctor's words kept playing in his head like a broken record. Cancer, early stage. Treatment starts next week. He needed to talk to someone, anyone. His best friend Ryan always knew what to say during tough times. They'd been friends since college, through job losses, breakups, and every crisis in between. Ryan would understand. David's vision was blurry from tears he was trying to hold back. He opened his messages and started typing. The words just poured out of him. Everything he'd been holding inside during that terrible meeting with the doctors. His mom had sat there so calm, nodding and asking practical questions about treatment schedules. But David had seen her hands trembling in her lap. "I don't know how to do this," he typed. "Mom is acting like everything's fine, but I can see she's terrified. The doctor said the treatment should work, but what if it doesn't? I'm supposed to be strong for her, but I feel like I'm drowning. Every time I try to say something encouraging, it sounds fake. I'm scared, man. I'm really scared. I keep thinking about all the time I wasted being busy, missing Sunday dinners because of work. What if I don't get enough time to make up for all of that?" His thumb hovered over the send button for a moment. Then he pressed it and threw his phone onto the passenger seat. He needed to pull himself together before going back inside. His mom would want to grab something from the cafeteria, and he couldn't let her see him like this. 20 miles across the city, Lisa was sitting in her car in a different hospital parking lot. She'd just finished a 12-hour shift in the hospice wing. It had been one of those days that reminded her why her job was the hardest and most important thing she'd ever done. She'd held the hand of a dying man while his daughter said goodbye. She'd comforted a wife who'd just lost her husband of 50 years. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, expecting a message from her roommate about dinner plans. Instead, there was a long text from a number she didn't recognize. She almost deleted it, thinking it was spam, but something made her read it. As she read David's words, her heart sank. She'd seen this exact fear hundreds of times. The terror in a son's eyes, the weight of trying to be strong when you're falling apart inside, the guilt about missed moments and wasted time. Lisa knew this message wasn't meant for her. She should just reply "wrong number" and move on with her evening. That's what most people would do. But she couldn't. Not after the day she'd had. Not after watching families struggle with these exact feelings. She'd spent 6 years working in hospice care. She'd learned what people really needed when facing their worst fears. And this stranger, whoever he was, needed to hear something true right now. Her fingers moved across the keyboard. "I think you meant to send this to someone else, but I'm a nurse who works with families going through exactly what you're facing. I want you to know something important. You don't have to be strong every single moment. Your mom doesn't need you to have all the answers. She needs you to be there. To be real with her. It's okay to be scared together. And about those missed dinners? She remembers the ones you made it to, not the ones you missed. You're not drowning. You're learning to swim in deep water, and that's different." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Maybe he'd think she was crazy. Maybe he wouldn't even respond. But at least she'd tried. David had been sitting in his car for 10 minutes when his phone buzzed. He grabbed it, expecting Ryan's reply. Instead, he saw a message from the number he'd texted. But it wasn't Ryan's usual jokes or words of encouragement. This was something different. He read it twice, then 3 times. His chest felt tight. This person, whoever they were, had just said exactly what he needed to hear. Not platitudes about everything being fine. Not false promises that his mom would definitely be okay. Just honest, real words from someone who understood. He looked at the number. It was close to Ryan's, but not quite right. He'd been so upset, so distracted, that he'd typed it wrong. He'd sent his most vulnerable moment to a complete stranger. His first instinct was embarrassment. He should apologize and explain the mistake. But something stopped him. This nurse, this stranger, had taken time to respond with such care, such understanding. "I'm so sorry," he typed back. "I meant to text my friend. I must have gotten the number wrong. But thank you for what you said. I really needed to hear it. You have no idea how much." Lisa smiled when she saw his reply. "Don't apologize. Sometimes the right message finds the right person, even if it takes a wrong number to get there. How's your mom doing right now?" David found himself typing out an honest answer. He told her about the treatment plan, about how his mom was being so brave it almost hurt to watch. He told her about his dad, who'd passed away 5 years ago, and how his mom had been the strong one then. Now it was supposed to be his turn, but he didn't know how. The conversation flowed easier than any he'd had in weeks. This stranger didn't know him, didn't know his family, didn't have any expectations of him. She just listened and responded with insights that could only come from someone who'd walked alongside hundreds of families through their darkest times. Your mom was strong for your dad, because she had to be, Lisa wrote. But maybe what she needs now isn't for you to be strong the way she was. Maybe she needs you to be honest, to tell her you're scared, to let her see that you love her enough to be vulnerable with her. David sat there in the parking lot reading those words over and over. He'd been so focused on being the rock, the support, the one who had it all together. He hadn't considered that maybe his mom needed to see his heart, not his strength. "Thank you," he typed. "I don't know who you are, but you just changed how I'm going to handle this." "I'm just someone who's seen a lot of families go through hard things," Lisa replied. "And I've learned that love shows up in honesty, not perfection. Good luck with everything. You're going to be okay." David expected that to be the end of it. A strange but meaningful encounter with a kind stranger. He'd go back inside, face his mom, and try to follow this nurse's advice. But as he walked back into the hospital, his phone buzzed again. "If you ever need to talk about what you're going through, you can text me. I mean it. Sometimes it helps to talk to someone who isn't part of your regular life. No pressure, though." David stopped in the middle of the hospital lobby. A stranger was offering him something his own friends and family couldn't provide. A space to be completely honest without worrying about being judged or making things harder for the people he loved. He saved the number in his phone, not under a name, just a note. The nurse from the wrong number. He had no idea that this mistake would become the most important thing that happened to him that year. That this stranger would help him through the hardest months of his life. That sometimes the wrong number is exactly the right one. All he knew in that moment was that someone out there understood, and for now that was enough. 3 days passed before David texted the nurse again. He'd thought about it dozens of times, his thumb hovering over her number, but he always stopped himself. What would he even say? Thanks again for being nice to a stranger? It felt awkward. But on Thursday night, after his mom's first chemotherapy session, he found himself sitting in his apartment, completely overwhelmed. His mom had been so sick afterward. She'd tried to hide it, tried to smile and say she was fine, but he'd seen her gripping the armrest of his car on the drive home. He pulled out his phone and typed, "She started treatment today. It was harder to watch than I expected." The response came within minutes. The first one is always the worst, not because it's actually worse, but because it's unknown. "How is she doing now?" Just like that, they were talking again. Lisa asked questions that showed she really understood what they were going through. Not just medical questions, but real ones. Was his mom eating? Was she scared to be alone? Had she started losing her hair yet? "Not yet," David wrote. "But she keeps touching it like she's saying goodbye to it already." "That's normal," Lisa responded. "When it starts, suggest she cut it short first. It's less shocking that way. And maybe go with her. Make it feel like a choice, not something cancer is doing to her." David hadn't thought of that. He'd been so focused on the big things like treatment schedules and medication side effects that he'd missed these smaller, human details. Over the next few weeks, texting the nurse became part of his routine. Not every day, but whenever he needed someone who understood. When his mom couldn't eat anything without feeling sick, Lisa suggested ginger tea and popsicles. When David felt guilty about going to work instead of staying with his mom, Lisa reminded him that normal routines help patients feel like the world isn't ending. "Your mom needs to see you living your life," she wrote. "It reminds her that there's a future to fight for." What surprised David most was how easy it was to be honest with her. He told her things he couldn't tell anyone else, like how he'd cried in the shower that morning, how he'd almost had a panic attack in a meeting when someone mentioned cancer in a casual way, how he felt angry sometimes, angry at the universe for doing this to his mom. "Anger is normal," Lisa wrote back. "You're allowed to be mad. You're allowed to have bad days. This isn't about being positive all the time. It's about being human." She shared things too, though not as much. She told him about her job, about how hard it was to care for people at the end of their lives. She'd been doing it for 6 years, and some days she wondered if she had anything left to give. "Why do you keep doing it?" David asked. "Because someone has to," she replied, "and because I've seen what good care can mean to a family." I've seen people die peacefully because someone held their hand and told them it was okay to let go. That matters. David found himself thinking about her between texts. He wondered what she looked like, how old she was, whether she had family of her own. But he never asked. There was something special about their connection existing only in words. No faces, no history, no expectations. Just two people helping each other through hard times. One night, 3 weeks into his mom's treatment, Lisa sent him a message that wasn't about cancer at all. Bad day at work. Lost a patient I'd been caring for 6 months. I knew it was coming, but it still hurts. David stared at his phone. She was the one who always had the right words, who always knew what to say. Now she needed someone, and he had no idea if he could help the way she'd helped him. I'm sorry, he typed. I don't know what to say that would make it better. But I'm here if you need to talk about it. That's enough, she wrote back. Sometimes just knowing someone cares is what we need. They talked for over an hour that night. Lisa told him about the patient, an older woman who'd loved gardening and terrible reality TV shows. She told him about sitting with the family as they said goodbye, about how the woman's daughter had thanked her through tears. You gave them something precious, David wrote. You gave them peace when they needed it most. That's not nothing. That's everything. Lisa didn't respond for a few minutes. Then thank you. I needed to hear that tonight. Something shifted between them after that conversation. They weren't just a cancer patient's son and a hospice nurse anymore. They were friends. They checked in on each other. They shared the small stuff too, not just the heavy things. Lisa told him about her terrible roommate who never did dishes. David told her about his boss who kept scheduling meetings at 5 p.m. When David's mom had a good week, her energy coming back a little, he texted Lisa immediately. She made dinner tonight. First time in a month. It was just pasta, but it felt like a celebration. Those moments matter more than you know, Lisa wrote back. Hold on to them. But not every update was good. 2 months into treatment, David's mom had a complication. Her white blood cell count dropped dangerously low and she had to be hospitalized for a week. David practically lived at the hospital, sleeping in a chair beside her bed. He texted Lisa from the hospital at 2 a.m. I'm scared. Really scared. They say she'll be okay, but what if she's not? Where are you right now? Lisa asked. Hospital. Room 314. Is your mom sleeping? Yeah. Good. Listen to me. You being there matters. Even while she sleeps, she knows you're there. That's giving her strength. But you need to take care of yourself too. Have you eaten today? David had to think about it. I had coffee this morning. That's not food. There's a vending machine on the 2nd floor that has decent sandwiches. Go get one. I'll keep texting so you know your mom is fine while you're gone. What if something happens while I'm away? The nurses will call you immediately. And I'll be right here on the phone. Go. 5 minutes. Your mom needs you healthy, David went. He grabbed a sandwich he barely tasted and a bottle of water. True to her word, Lisa kept texting him the whole time. Random stuff about a funny thing that happened at work, about a TV show she was watching. Normal conversation that reminded him the world was still turning. When he got back to his mom's room, she was still sleeping peacefully. He sent Lisa a photo of the half-eaten sandwich. Proud of you, she wrote back. Small victories matter too. His mom recovered from the complication. The treatment continued. Through it all, Lisa was there. A constant presence in David's life without ever actually being present. She knew his mom's medication schedule. She remembered when appointments were. She celebrated the good days and sat with him through the bad ones. One evening after his mom had a particularly good scan result, David found himself wondering about his mystery friend. Can I ask you something personal? He typed. Sure. Why did you help me that first night? You could have just said wrong number and moved on. Lisa took a while to respond. Honestly, I'd had a really hard day at work. I'd watched a family fall apart because they couldn't talk to each other about their fears. They all tried to be strong, and it just made everyone feel alone. Then your message came through and I saw someone making the same mistake. I couldn't just let it happen again. I'm glad you didn't, David wrote. You've helped me more than you know. You've helped my mom too, even though she doesn't know you exist. How is she doing? Really doing? Better. The doctor says the treatment is working. She might actually beat this thing. That's wonderful, see? You got through the hardest part. David realized she was right. Somehow with Lisa's help, he'd survived the worst months of his life. He'd been there for his mom in ways he never thought possible. He'd learned to be vulnerable, to be honest, to accept help when he needed it. "I couldn't have done it without you," he typed. "Yes, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." They kept texting after that, even though the crisis had passed. It had become a habit, a friendship neither of them wanted to lose. David told her about his mom's hair growing back, about how she'd started volunteering at a cancer support group. Lisa told him about new patients, about the ways her job was getting easier, now that she remembered why it mattered. Neither of them mentioned meeting in person. Neither of them asked for photos or last names. They existed in this strange, beautiful space where two people who'd never met had become crucial parts of each other's lives. David didn't know that everything was about to change, that in a few weeks, his carefully separated worlds would collide in the most unexpected way, that the mystery would have to end, and they'd both have to decide if their friendship could survive reality. For now, he was just grateful for the wrong number that had become so right. 4 months into their unusual friendship, something started to change. David couldn't quite put his finger on when it happened, but somewhere along the way, Lisa had become the first person he wanted to talk to about everything. Not just the scary stuff about his mom, but the ordinary moments too. When he got a promotion at work, she was the first to know. When he burned dinner trying to cook a fancy meal, he sent her a photo of the smoke detector going off. When he couldn't sleep at 3 a.m, she was usually awake too, finishing a late shift, ready to chat about nothing and everything. "You ever think it's weird," he texted her one night, "that we talk every day but don't even know what each other looks like?" "Sometimes," she admitted. "But maybe that's what makes it work. We know each other in ways that matter more than appearances." David thought about that. She was right. He knew Lisa was kind, funny, and sometimes painfully honest. He knew she drank too much coffee and had a weakness for bad action movies. He knew she cried at work sometimes, but never in front of patients. He knew she believed in second chances and that people were generally good, even when they disappointed her. But he didn't know if she was tall or short, blonde or brunette, his age or 20 years older. And somehow that felt okay. Better than okay, actually. His mom noticed the change in him. She was doing much better now. Her scans showing the cancer was responding well to treatment. She had energy again, was eating normally, even started taking walks around the neighborhood. "You've been on your phone a lot lately," she mentioned one Sunday over lunch. "Got a girlfriend you're not telling me about?" David felt his face get hot. "No, Mom, just a friend." "A friend who makes you smile at your phone like that?" She raised an eyebrow. "Come on, honey. I'm sick, not blind." "It's complicated," he said, which was the truth. How could he explain Lisa? The wrong number that became a lifeline? The stranger who knew him better than people who'd known him for years? "Well, complicated or not, whoever it is, they're good for you," his mom said. "You seem lighter somehow. More yourself." That night, David told Lisa about the conversation. "My mom thinks you're my girlfriend." "What did you tell her?" "That you're just a friend." "Which is true, is it?" Lisa wrote back. Then, almost immediately, "Sorry, forget I said that." But David couldn't forget it. He lay in bed that night thinking about her question. Was it true? Were they just friends? He'd never felt this connected to any of his actual girlfriends. He'd never trusted anyone the way he trusted Lisa. But was that friendship or something else? He didn't have an answer. Lisa was dealing with her own confusion. She'd made a rule when she started her job: never get emotionally involved. Care for patients, support families, but keep professional distance. It was the only way to survive in hospice care without burning out completely. But David wasn't a patient or a family member. He was something else entirely, and she found herself thinking about him at odd moments, wondering what he looked like, imagining what it would be like to hear his voice instead of just reading his words. Her roommate Kelly noticed. "You're doing it again," she said one evening, watching Lisa smile at her phone. "Doing what?" "Texting that mystery guy. The wrong number guy. You talk about him all the time." "I do not." "Lisa, please. Yesterday you told me a funny story about his mom's cat, and I don't even know this woman. You're falling for this guy." "That's ridiculous. We've never even met." "So meet him," Kelly said simply. "What's stopping you?" Lisa didn't have a good answer. Fear, maybe. Fear that reality wouldn't match the connection they'd built. Fear that he'd be disappointed when he saw her. Fear that putting faces and real lives to their friendship would ruin the magic of it. But Kelly had planted a seed in her mind. A week later, Something happened that changed everything. David's mom had her final scan, the big one that would tell them if the cancer was truly gone. David was terrified. He'd gotten used to the routine of treatment, the regular check-ins, the sense that they were actively fighting. This felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. What if it's not gone? He texted Lisa the night before the results. What if all of this was for nothing? Then you deal with whatever comes next just like you've been doing, she wrote back. But David, you need to prepare yourself for good news too. What if it is gone? What if your mom is okay? Can you handle that? What do you mean? Sometimes people get so used to crisis mode that they don't know how to live normally again. You've been the caretaker for months. Who will you be when your mom doesn't need that anymore? David had never thought about it that way. He'd been so focused on getting through each day that he hadn't considered what came after. The next morning, he sat in the doctor's office with his mom, holding her hand. When the doctor said the words, "no evidence of disease," David's mom cried. He cried too. They hugged for a long time, neither one wanting to let go. His mom was cancer-free. That night, David sent Lisa a long message. He told her about the results, about his mom's tears of joy, about how it felt to finally breathe again after months of holding his breath. And then he wrote something he'd been thinking about for weeks. I want to meet you. I know we've kept this separate from real life, and maybe that's been good. But you've been such a huge part of getting through this. I want to say thank you in person. I want to see the face of the person who saved me. He hit send before he could chicken out. Lisa read the message 3 times. Her heart was pounding. This was what she'd been wanting but also dreading. The unknown was safe. Reality was risky. I want to meet you too, she typed. Then deleted it. Then typed it again. But I'm scared. Of what? That it won't be the same. That we've built something in this bubble and bringing it into the real world will pop it. Or maybe it'll make it better, David wrote. Maybe we'll realize we've been missing out on the best parts. Lisa smiled at her phone. He had a point. Okay, let's do it. But somewhere public. Coffee shop or something? Deal, how about Saturday afternoon? There's a coffee place called The Daily Grind near the hospital. It's kind of halfway between our parts of the city. Lisa felt her stomach drop. The hospital. She worked at a hospital. What if it was the same one? What if they'd been in the same building all this time? Which hospital? She asked. St. Mary's. Why? Lisa's hands were shaking as she typed. That's where I work. I'm a hospice nurse at St. Mary's. There was a long pause. Lisa watched the 3 dots appear and disappear several times. Finally, David's response came through. We've been in the same place this whole time. Looks like it. I don't know what that is. Weird? Fate? Cosmic joke? Maybe all 3, Lisa wrote. They agreed to meet on Saturday at noon. Lisa spent the next 2 days alternating between excitement and terror. She changed her outfit 4 times that morning. She practiced what she'd say. She almost canceled twice. Kelly had to physically push her out the door. Go. You'll regret it forever if you don't. David was already at the coffee shop when Lisa arrived. She saw him through the window, sitting at a corner table looking at his phone. He was younger than she'd imagined, maybe late 20s. Dark hair, nervous hands that kept adjusting his coffee cup. She took a deep breath and walked in. David looked up as the bell over the door chimed. His eyes met hers, and somehow they both just knew. Maybe it was the way she looked at him, like she was seeing someone familiar. Maybe it was timing. Maybe it was just that feeling when something clicks. Lisa? He said, standing up. David. They stood there for a moment, 2 people who knew everything and nothing about each other. Then Lisa smiled, and David smiled back, and suddenly it wasn't weird at all. It was just right. You're real, he said stupidly. So are you, she laughed. I was starting to think maybe I'd made you up. They sat down, and the conversation flowed just like it did over text. Easier, even. They talked for 3 hours, hardly noticing when their coffee got cold. David told her stories he'd never texted. Lisa shared things about her life she'd kept private. When they finally left the coffee shop, the sun was setting. David walked her to her car. He started. Yeah, Lisa agreed. It really was. Can we do it again, soon? I'd like that. As Lisa drove home, she realized Kelly was right. She had fallen for this guy, the wrong number who'd become the right person at the right time. And maybe, just maybe, he'd fallen too. Meeting in person should have made everything better. And in some ways it did. David loved seeing Lisa's expressions when she laughed. the way her eyes lit up when she was passionate about something. Lisa loved hearing David's voice, the way he gestured with his hands when he told stories. They started seeing each other regularly. Coffee dates turned into dinner dates. Dinner dates turned into long walks through the park. They fit together easily, their months of texting having built a foundation that most couples took years to develop. But real life was more complicated than text messages. 3 weeks after their first meeting, Lisa had a brutal day at work. She lost 2 patients in one shift, both younger than they should have been. She came home exhausted, emotionally drained, wanting nothing more than to collapse on her couch. David had planned a surprise dinner. He'd spent hours cooking his mom's recipe for lasagna, wanting to do something special for her. When Lisa arrived at his apartment and saw the candles and fancy table setting, she should have been touched. Instead, she felt overwhelmed. "I can't do this tonight," she said quietly. "I just can't." "Do what?" "It's just dinner." "It's not just dinner, David, it's expectations. It's having to be present when I feel completely empty inside. I needed to go home and be alone, and now I feel guilty because you went to all this trouble." David was confused. When Lisa had bad days, she used to text him and they'd talk through it. Why was being together in person different? "I don't understand," he said. "You always told me to talk about the hard stuff." "That's what we did, right? We talked. Texting is different. I could process my feelings and then share them with you. It's too raw, too immediate." They ate the lasagna in uncomfortable silence. Lisa left early, apologizing but not really explaining. David cleaned up the dishes, wondering what had just happened. The next day, Lisa sent him a long text. "Old habits die hard. I'm sorry about last night. I wasn't fair to you. It's just that work is so intense and I've built up walls to protect myself. When I'm texting, I can maintain those walls while still being close to you. In person, everything feels too vulnerable." David understood, but it hurt anyway. "So what are we doing here, Lisa? Are we building something real, or are we just going to hide behind our phones forever?" That question hung between them for days. They saw each other less frequently, both pulling back without quite meaning to. The easy flow of their texts became stilted. They were both trying too hard, and it showed. David's mom noticed immediately. "What happened with your friend?" she asked one Sunday. "You seem sad." "It's complicated," David said, using his standard answer. "Honey, everything worth having is complicated. But you can't let complicated scare you away from happy." Meanwhile, Lisa was getting similar advice from Kelly. "You're self-sabotaging," her roommate said bluntly. "This guy is great. He gets you. He's been there for you. And you're pushing him away because you're scared." "I'm not scared," Lisa protested. "You're terrified. You've spent 6 years building walls to protect yourself from your job. And now someone's trying to climb over those walls. Of course you're scared." Lisa knew Kelly was right. She'd gotten so good at compartmentalizing, at keeping her work life and personal life separate, that she didn't know how to let someone in completely. With David, she'd been able to share the hard parts of her job without the vulnerability of physical presence. Now she had to learn a new way. The turning point came on a random Tuesday. Lisa had just finished her shift when she got an emergency call. One of her former patients, a woman she'd cared for months ago, had taken a turn for the worse. The family was asking for Lisa specifically. Would she come even though she was off duty? Lisa drove to the house, her heart heavy. She'd known this was coming, but it never got easier. She spent 3 hours with the family, helping them say goodbye, making sure their mother was comfortable and not in pain. When it was over, when the woman had passed peacefully with her children around her, Lisa walked to her car and broke down. She sat in the parking lot, crying harder than she had in years. All the grief she'd been holding in, all the walls she'd built came crashing down. She pulled out her phone and called David. Not texted, called. "Lisa, are you okay?" "No," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm not okay. Can you come get me?" "I don't think I should drive." "Where are you?" She told him the address. He was there in 15 minutes, even though it was across town. He found her in her car, mascara running, hands shaking. He didn't ask questions. He just held her while she cried. When she was ready, he drove her home in her car, his own car left behind to deal with later. He helped her inside, made her tea, sat with her on the couch. Her name was Patricia. Lisa finally said, "I took care of her last year. She was so funny, always making jokes even when she was in pain. Her family asked for me tonight because they knew I'd understand. And I did. I helped them. But God, David, it hurt so much. I know, he said softly. I know it does. This is why I keep walls up. Because if I feel everything, every loss, every goodbye, I'll break. I can't break. Too many people need me. You're not breaking, Lisa. You're human. There's a difference. They talked for hours. Lisa told him about all the patients she'd lost, all the families she'd helped, all the grief she carried. David listened, really listened, the way she'd listened to him all those months ago. I pushed you away, Lisa said eventually. I was afraid of needing someone this much, of letting you see me fall apart. You think I haven't fallen apart in front of you? Lisa, you've seen me at my absolute worst. Why would you think I'd judge you for the same thing? Because I'm supposed to be the strong one. The helper. The one with answers. You don't have to be that with me. You never did? Something shifted that night. Lisa realized that she'd been treating their relationship like one of her patient cases, keeping professional distance to protect herself. But David wasn't a patient. He was someone who'd seen her heart and decided he wanted to know it better. In the weeks that followed, they learned how to be together in real life. It wasn't always smooth. Lisa still had days when she needed space to process her feelings alone. David had moments when he felt shut out, forgotten, but they talked about it. Not just through text, but face to face, even when it was uncomfortable. They established new rhythms. When Lisa had hard days at work, she'd text David a simple rough day, and he'd know to give her an hour alone before checking in. When David felt like she was pulling away, he learned to say so instead of retreating into hurt silence. Lisa introduced him to her work friends. David introduced her to his mom, who took one look at them together and smiled knowingly. So this is the friend who helped us through treatment, she said. I should have known it was more than that. 4 months after their first coffee shop meeting, David and Lisa were walking through the hospital where they'd both spent so much time. She'd just finished her shift and he'd come to pick her up for dinner. I've been thinking, David said, about that first message. The one I sent to the wrong number. What about it? I don't think it was wrong after all. I think it went exactly where it needed to go. Lisa took his hand. You know what the crazy thing is? I almost didn't respond. I had typed out wrong number and everything. My thumb was hovering over send. What changed your mind? Honestly, I'd had such a hard day, and your message reminded me why I do what I do. You gave me purpose right when I needed it most. So we saved each other. Yeah, Lisa smiled. I guess we did. They walked through the hospital parking lot, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way. The wrong number that became the right connection at exactly the right time. But they didn't know that their story was about to take another turn. That sometimes the universe isn't done surprising you, even when you think you've figured everything out. That the hospital where they'd both spent so much time had one more twist in store for them. For now, though, they were just two people in love walking hand in hand, grateful for a mistake that became the best thing that ever happened to them. 6 months after David and Lisa's first coffee shop meeting, the hospital announced its annual award ceremony. Every year they recognize staff members who went above and beyond in patient care. Lisa's supervisor had nominated her, though Lisa didn't know it until the official invitation arrived. The Compassionate Care Award. Kelly read over Lisa's shoulder. That's a big deal. That's the biggest award they give. Lisa felt her stomach flip. I don't want to make a speech in front of hundreds of people. Too bad. You're going, and you're accepting it with grace, and I'm buying a fancy dress for this occasion. When Lisa told David, he was thrilled. This is amazing. You deserve this. You help so many people. Will you come with me? She asked. I need someone there who won't let me run away. Of course. I wouldn't miss it. The ceremony was scheduled for a Saturday evening. Lisa spent the week nervous, practicing a short speech, changing her mind about her outfit multiple times. David kept reassuring her that she'd be great, that all she had to do was be herself. What David didn't tell Lisa was that he'd been contacted by the hospital too. They'd heard about his mom's recovery and wanted to film a short video about the importance of family support during cancer treatment. They wanted him to speak at the ceremony, right before the awards were announced. He'd almost told Lisa a dozen times, but something stopped him. He wanted it to be a surprise. He wanted to stand in front of a room full of medical professionals and tell them how much difference one person's kindness could make. The night of the ceremony, David picked Lisa up at her apartment. She looked beautiful in a simple navy dress, though her hands were shaking as she got in the car. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "You're going to be amazing," he said, squeezing her hand. They arrived at the hospital conference center early. The room was already filling with doctors, nurses, and staff members. Lisa spotted colleagues from her department and went to say hello. David excused himself, saying he needed to use the restroom. Actually, he needed to check in with the event coordinator about his speaking slot. "You're on right before the awards," the coordinator told him. "5 minutes, then we'll bring you up." David's own nerves kicked in. He'd been so focused on supporting Lisa that he hadn't thought much about his own part in the evening. Now, standing backstage, he realized he was about to tell their story to a room full of strangers. Well, part of their story anyway. The ceremony began. The hospital administrator gave a long speech about excellence in healthcare. Various departments were recognized for their achievements. David sat next to Lisa, watching her get more nervous as the evening went on. Then the administrator said something that made David's heart race. "Before we present our final award of the evening, we have a special guest. David Patterson is here to talk about his family's experience with cancer treatment and the unexpected ways that compassion can come into our lives." Lisa turned to stare at David. "What? Surprise?" he said weakly, standing up. He walked to the podium, his speech notes suddenly feeling inadequate. He looked out at the crowd, found Lisa's confused face, and took a deep breath. "6 months ago, I was sitting in my car outside this hospital," he began. "My mother had just been diagnosed with cancer, and I was falling apart. I needed to talk to someone, so I pulled out my phone to text my best friend. But I was upset not paying attention, and I typed the wrong number." He saw Lisa's eyes widen. Around the room, people were leaning forward, interested. "I sent a message full of fear and pain to a complete stranger. And that stranger, instead of just saying wrong number and moving on, took the time to respond with exactly what I needed to hear. She told me I didn't have to be strong all the time. She told me my mom needed my presence, not my perfection. She told me it was going to be okay." Someone in the audience said, "Aw." David continued. "That stranger was a nurse at this hospital. Over the next few months, she became my lifeline. She helped me understand what my mom was going through. She taught me how to be there for someone without losing myself. She answered questions at 2 a.m. and celebrated small victories with me. She saved me during the darkest time of my life, and she did it without ever expecting anything in return." Lisa had tears in her eyes. So did several people around her. "My mom is cancer-free now. She's healthy and happy and back to her normal life. And I got to be the son she needed during treatment because a stranger took 5 minutes to be kind. That's what healthcare really is. It's not just the procedures and medications. It's the humanity, the compassion, the willingness to show up for people even when you don't have to." He looked directly at Lisa. "That nurse taught me that sometimes the right message finds the right person, even if it takes a wrong number to get there. So to everyone in this room who's ever taken extra time with a patient, who's ever gone beyond your job description to help someone, thank you. You're changing lives in ways you'll never fully know." The room erupted in applause. David walked back to his seat, his legs shaking. Lisa grabbed his hand as he sat down. "You didn't tell me," she whispered. "I wanted to surprise you. I can't believe you just told our story to everyone. I didn't say your name. Your secret's safe, but it wasn't really." Because the next speaker was the hospital administrator, announcing the Compassionate Care Award. This year's recipient exemplifies everything we just heard about. She goes above and beyond for her patients and their families, often in ways no one sees. She's been nominated by colleagues, patients, and families who all say the same thing. She makes the hardest moments bearable. Please join me in congratulating Lisa Mitchell, our hospice department's most dedicated nurse. The room applauded as Lisa stood up, shocked. She walked to the stage in a daze, accepted the plaque, and stood at the podium. She'd prepared a short, professional speech. But looking out at the audience, seeing David in the crowd with tears in his eyes, she decided to tell the truth instead. "Thank you for this honor," she said. "I love my job, even though it's the hardest thing I've ever done. I spend every day with people at the end of their lives, and honestly, it breaks my heart regularly. 6 years in, I was starting to wonder if I could keep doing it." She paused, gathering courage. Then one night after a particularly difficult shift, I got a text message from a wrong number. It was someone pouring out their heart, scared and alone, asking for help. And something made me respond. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to help someone right then. Maybe I needed to remember that what I do matters. Lisa looked at David. That wrong number became one of the most important people in my life. He reminded me why I became a nurse. He showed me that compassion isn't just about the big dramatic moments. It's about showing up, being present, telling someone they're not alone. The room was completely silent. So I guess what I'm saying is that awards are wonderful, but the real reward is knowing you've made a difference. And sometimes that difference comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes you help someone and they end up helping you right back. That's what makes this job, this calling, worth every difficult day. The applause was thunderous. Lisa walked off stage directly to David, who pulled her into a hug. You told them, he said. Not everything, she smiled. I left out the part where I fell completely in love with that wrong number. That might have been too much for one night. They laughed, both of them crying a little, overwhelmed by the moment. Later, after the ceremony ended and they'd talked to what felt like 100 people, David and Lisa found themselves back in the hospital parking lot where so much of their story had taken place. You know what's crazy? Lisa said. We were here all along. You were sitting in your car over there texting me, and I was probably somewhere in that building, reading your messages. We were so close but had no idea. Maybe we weren't ready to meet yet, David said. Maybe we needed those months of just talking, just being honest without all the complications of real life. And now? Now I can't imagine my life without you in it. The real, in-person, complicated, beautiful you. Lisa kissed him right there in the parking lot under the streetlights. My mom wants to meet you properly, David said when they pulled apart. As my girlfriend, not just the mystery person who helped us through cancer. I'd like that. And I want you to meet my parents. They're going to love the wrong number story. Everyone seems to love the wrong number story. That's because it's a good story. It's our story. They got in the car, but before driving away, David pulled out his phone and scrolled back through their old text messages. Months and months of conversations, from that first terrified message to the everyday updates they shared now. Should we delete these? Lisa asked, looking over his shoulder. Start fresh? Are you kidding? These are proof that sometimes the best things in life come from mistakes. I'm keeping them forever. You're such a romantic. Only because you taught me how to be vulnerable, how to ask for help, how to let people in. And you taught me that walls don't keep you safe, they keep you lonely. 1 year later, David's mom would stand up at their wedding rehearsal dinner and tell the story of the wrong number to all their assembled friends and family. She'd talk about how her son's mistake became the greatest gift, how sometimes the universe sends exactly what you need in the most unexpected package. Lisa's colleagues from the hospital would be there, along with several families she'd helped over the years. They'd all nod knowingly, understanding that Lisa and David's connection was something special. Something that happened when two people who needed each other found each other against all odds. But on this night, sitting in the hospital parking lot, they didn't know about the wedding yet. They just knew they'd found something rare, a connection built on honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to respond when the universe sent an unexpected message. Ready to go home? Lisa asked. Yeah, David said, starting the car. But first I need to do something. He pulled out his phone and sent Lisa a text, even though she was sitting right next to him. Thank you for responding to a wrong number. Best mistake I ever made. Lisa's phone buzzed. She read the message and smiled, typing back. Best response I ever sent. Love you. Their phones sat on the console between them as David drove through the city streets. Two devices that had connected two hearts before faces ever met. Two people who'd found each other in the most modern and yet timeless way possible. A wrong number that was actually the rightest thing either of them had ever experienced. And somewhere in the digital cloud, those first messages remained, a testament to the fact that sometimes the most important connections in our lives start with a simple mistake and a stranger's decision to be kind.